So we're holding Zayin on the base. Today's Amud, Zayin on the base. And we're holding the last line of the Zayin on the Al. It's mamish continuation of the previous Gemara. Previous Gemara, Rabbi Yisroel said, "Ein lano elo zois v'oida peres," which means that we only have a situation of a lav anitig la'aseh, which ordinarily doesn't get malchus. But if you're not mekayim la'aseh, or according to Rabbi Yisroel, you have to actually be mevatel la'aseh. You have to make it the aseh impossible to. The person has to actively, with his own hands, make it impossible for him to keep the asay. So then he gets malchus. So Rabbi Yisroel says, "Anu ein lano elo zois v'oida peres." We only have the case of shiluch hakan, where if you shech the animal, so then you can't be mekayim the mitzvah shalech the shalach anymore, and then you're going to get malchus for the lav of lo yisifach hayim alabanim. But one more. So what's the other one? So the Gemara up until now said oines shegirish. Oines shegirish, that if he makes a neder, das Rabbi according to the Maskana of the Gemara, according to some neder bo Rabbim, but according to others, it's a neder das Rabbi. So then that he's not going to have enough from the woman. So then he's been mevatel asay. He's not going to be able to time the asay of kol yamav amoid lahaser, the positive kol yamav, which fixes up the lav of yuchel l'shalfa kol yamav, the yuchel l'shalfa. So then he gets malchus. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara asks the kasha, what do you mean? We have lo sigza. We have a mashkin. If someone's not supposed to come to take a mashkin, if he does, he has to return the mashkin. You're not allowed to go into someone's house to take a mashkin. You have to stand outside. If you do, you have to return it. So therefore, we have a mishkachas of the kaim bid of loy bid. So my answers are no. Over there, since you chayev b'tashlumin, so there's no malchus. I just mentioned last time that the Lord the chayev b'tashlumin, I think is machlekes rishonim. What's pshat chayev b'tashlumin? In other words, is it pshat that if you chayev b'tashlumin, you still haven't, in other words, you can still be mekayim naseh? It doesn't necessarily mean returning the actual chayfetz anixer, the actual object for stolen. You could return money and still be mekayim naseh. So as long as you have money, you're still going to be able to be mekayim naseh. According to others, like the Rambam, it's clear that pshat is no. Taki you've been mevatel naseh, but because you don't get malchus for another reason, because it's a lab and nitam netashlumin. Any lab which you need to pay, even if it's not the kiyum of the asay, so there's no malchus. But either way, the point is that the Gemara is saying there's no malchus for sigzil ever, and therefore anu and ein lanu elo zois v'oida peres. At the moment, we're sticking with shiluch hakan and oines shegirish, gezel, mashkan. These are cases where you're always going to be chayiv to pay. So now the Gemara says kasha on the same line. Let's talk about lo sigzil. Let's talk about mashkan. You have a situation of a mashkin of a ger, and then the ger dies. The ger dies, meaning to say like this. I'm not sure why it says dafka mashkin. It could also be for stealing from a ger. I'm not sure why dafka says that. It could just be talking about mashkin most recently. So we say mashkin. But the same thing is if you stole from a ger and the ger dies, so then, and you burnt the chayfetz hanigzal or the mashkin while the ger was alive, as Rashi explained. So you'll mevatel it, and now the ger dies, so you can't pay. So it comes out that you mevatel asay through burning it, and now there's no way of paying it because the ger dies. So normally if a person dies, he has Yoshim. But a ger, if he has no children, then he has no Yoshim, because Yoshim goes to the next paternal, the mishpacha from the father's side, but the ger has no Yiddish mishpacha. Ger is kikatan shenoiladam. So the Gemara answers what seems to be a pashta answer. Pasam gavra bar tashlumin, b'shibud the ger the kabaka. Over there, you are a gavra bar tashlumin. You chayav to pay money. In other words, when you burnt it, you weren't mevatel the assay of returning the mashkin or returning the gazelle, because you still had to pay. The only problem is, and later the shibud the ger the kabaka, when the ger passes away, there's no chiyur tashlumin. In other words, I find it hard to understand what the Gemara's kasha was. What the havamina was. Like upon in the teretz is very straightforward. That the Torah, when you burn the chayfetz hager, when you burn the mashkin of the ger, you're still chayiv to pay. The fact that he dies later has nothing to do with you. And there's no one to pay. That's nothing to do with you. Shibud the ger the kapak. Let's see Rashi, just because this is just how mashkoinish shall ger. But sorry for the chay ger. Actually, you burnt it while the ger was alive. Or meis hager ve'ein lo yoshin. So that's the tashlumin. You no longer have to pay. If you burnt it after the ger passed away, for sure, then the Gemara didn't even have a havamina. It was nothing to do. You already had no when the ger passed away, it was already mevatel say for you. But if you burnt it the chaya ger, I might think that you made your mevatel say then. Chay b'tashlumin, but now the ger dies, so there's no chiyuv tashlumin. So maybe you'd get malchus. The Gemara says no. When you burnt it, you were chayav bit hashlamim. The loin is chayav malchus bit hashlamim. The hide let me shalom. The hide you don't have to pay now. The shibud of the ger. The shibud of the ger, the chiyuv of paying the ger goes away once it passes away because he has no yesh. Okay, so we pushed away that we can't be talking about gazel mashkin even in the case of a ger where there's no tashlamim, a ger shemays. Then now the Gemara asks another kasha. It's an interesting situation over here. The Gemara takes on the pashtus and it's not challenged that peah is also lava nitik laseh. Pashtus peah, I mean, the pashtus. If you read the pasuk, there's a lav of lois chala pa'as satva. Don't finish off the corner. You should leave it there for the ani to take. And there's a asay of lani v'lager ta'azu loisam. You don't think of it as being a lav nitik laseh. The Gemara takes from the pshitus over in the kasha, and the Teres doesn't answer otherwise. The peah is a lav nitik laseh. In other words, the Teres says lois chala pa'as satva. Don't finish it off. Leave it for the ani. And if you do cut it, if you do harvest it, then there's a mitzvah say of lani v'lager ta'azu loisam to give that which you cut. But it's a lav nitik laseh. If you only shaykh once you were over on the lav of leisachala, you cut it and now give it to the onik. So it's a lav nitlase. So here too the chorus lav nitlase, which you can get malchus if you weren't mekayim nase or if you were mevatel lase according to Rabbi. So that's the Gemara's kasha. But ikapeya, this peya drachman am leisachala paas v'goyim. The pasuk says leisachala paas sotcha, and the Torah continues by then saying laoni v'lager tazveisim. There's a positive mitzvah of leaving it for the ger. The mishkakas lating agoy sabak said, yeah. According to Rish Lakish, you can have a situation where a bezin orders you to give the pay and you don't do it, so therefore you're going to be chayav malchus, or by bitle v'lo bitle. According to Rabbi Yochanan, bitle v'lo bitle. We really win the shit of Rabbi Yochanan over here. Bitle v'lo bitle. If you mevatel it, in other words, we'll soon see. But therefore you could grind the wheat, and we clean it with a shinu, and there's no chiyuv to give it to the ani anymore. We learned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us how long you can give payas. It says mitzvah pay lahafish minakama. But emes, the mitzvah pay lachatchila is lahafish minakama to give it while it's still standing in the field. Lo yafish minakama mafish minaoimin. You didn't mafish it from the ground from when it's connected. Mafish minaoimin when it's in sheaves. It's you harvest it. Yeah, lo yafish minaoimin mafish minakri. Then you can be mafresh from the storage house until you smooth out the storage house. However, if you smooth it, you can still give payah. The only problem is that since there's a chiyuv of ma'isa at that point, so you have to first give ma'isa. Ma'isa v'noisa ma'aser. Sorry, the noisa. You take ma'isa and then you give it because you don't want to take the ma'isa away from the poor person. So you give the ma'isa first. But either way, it's clear that after that stage, it's too late. That's the latest stage that you can give ma'isa. But if you then go and grind the wheat, so you clean it with the shinnik, so there's no longer going to be a chiyuv of payah of la'ani v'lager ta'azu, and that would be a hechetimtza of bitloi of being mevatel la'aseh of la'ani v'lager ta'azu, which means you should get malchus for the loisachala, and this would be a third example of zois. Yeah, anu ein lon elo zois v'idachar. Of course, not true that we only have shiluch hakan and one more. We have oyne shegerish plus we have a second more. We have it with two more. We have a case of payah which you can be mevatel. So the Gemara answers no. Kid Rabbi Shmuel. We can say that the Rabbi Yochanan was going the shit of Rabbi Shmuel, the Amar, the halacha is takla Rabbi Shmuel, af mafish min ha'isa. He doesn't hold that you clean it with the shino. He says that even if you grind it, and even if you made it into dough, you still chayav to give payah from the dough. So according to him, Taki, you haven't been mevatel laseh, and therefore it's not another example of a case where lavanit laseh gets malchus because there's no way of being mevatel laseh. You're always going to have the aseh. You're always going to. Right? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? It's not true. The Rishwanam Mishkat is the achal isa. At the end of the day, you eat the dough, you eat the bread. You also mean that eventually there's nothing left of this wheat. So therefore, the Gemara sticks with this kasha that l'chura. How could Rabbi Yochanan say on Eilan Elazai? So Rabbi Yochanan says we only have a case of oines shegirish and shiloch hakan. L'chura, there's a third case of payah. So the Gemara takas chayza. Elo v'chayza no zois v'oid acheres aha. The taka Rabbi Yochanan who says that we only have zois v'oid acheres. He taka holds the zois v'oid acheres means zois is shiloch hakan. V'oid acheres, the other one is not oines shegirish. Rather, it's this case of payah. That's taka lavanit laseh, which you get malchus when you mevatel, when you eat the dough, when you eat the bread. So then you be mevatel laseh, and you're going to be loike for the lav of loisachala. And taka, what about oines shegirish? Aval oines shegir, aval oines loy. The case of oines taka is not considered a lavanit laseh, for which you get malchus. Why not? The heicha, because there's no way, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara is going to explain, according to the shit of Rabbi Yochanan, when he says he must have been referring to payah, and oines is taka not included. Why is oines not included? Because there's no way of being mevatel. I say you're always going to have to marry the woman. How are you going to always have to marry the woman? We said earlier that you can be noidal. That's Ram. So the Gemara says no, because Rabbi Yochanan holds the heicham. Because being chayzer from our assumption earlier that you can be noidal. That's Ram. You make a neder with the haskama of the Rabbezdin, so then you're mechuyev to keep the neder. and then you wouldn't be able to marry, and you'd be mevatel last say. It says like this: the heichamin al das rabin. When do we say al das rabin lafar? When you know das rabin lafar, it's varishus. When you make a neder for varishus, avol idvar mitzvah yesh lafar. But if you make a neder which is stopping you from doing a mitzvah, in other words, it relates to a mitzvah, just like over here, where you've got a mitzvah of loisia leisha. So then, even if you are noida al das rabin, yesh lafar, you can still be made for, you can still annul the vow, and therefore it comes out that you never ever can properly totally be mevatel laseh, and therefore it's a case of a lav niklaseh which doesn't get malchus, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan says ono ein on of this way. The Cheres was referring to the case of shiluch hakan and peah, but oin shigerish doesn't get malchus because he holds that even if you noida not have an offer in the woman, even al das rabim is yesh leafar, because the only time is ein leafar with varishus. This is the mitzvah. And he gives an example. Kihada hum mikri the dardiki. So there's an interesting gemara. There's a certain melamed have a posha biyinuke. He was being careless with the children. Rashi says he was hitting them more than necessary, which means even when they did hit children, there's still a musik of hitting them more than enough. So Adri Rav Acha Taka made a neder that he's not allowed to teach children anymore. However, Vahadri Rabina was choiza, revoked the Tnai and took the teacher back. Why did lo yishtakak the dai kavaseh? They couldn't find the Rebbe as good. The Taka, in other words, originally they passed him because he was hitting too much, but ultimately took him back because there wasn't anyone who could learn as well. So what do we see from the Gemara? We will teach as well. What do we see from the Gemara? We see over here that even though it's a nedal das rabim, that's near the Havana. It's a nedal das rabim. It was something that he shouldn't have done. Rashi doesn't explain why it's al das rabim. The Gemara takes some pshitas. We're talking about a case of das rabim. He did something wrong. He deserved not to teach. And that's what people wanted, and that's what the Bezdin decided. Nevertheless, Rabbina was chayzed, revoked the neder and took him back. So we see this concept that even if you know the das rabim, is yesh lo yachara if it's a bar mitzvah, if there's a mitzvah involved, no one's going to be able to learn Torah. So let's see Rashi. So you're going to have to go back on Rashi goes the whole way back to Taziv Oisim, the third line in the Amud, which is a pasuk of Peah. Taziv Oisim, the Kasava Taziv la'achav salav. The Gemara thinks, and Lamas is Maskan as well. Rashi uses an interesting lashon of Kosover as if this is a Hava minute, but this is the Maskan of the Gemara as well. That Taziv la'acha veris halav mash. The mitzvah of Taziv is even after the lav has been transgressed, has been over. Lo yisachale im kilisa Taziv. Shkachs love a bit like in Shetakan and Sakit. The Gemara understands originally that you grind the wheat. The two less than yomila say once you grind the wheat, you can't be mekayin nasei pay anymore. You pain in the b'shina. The Tanya the ba'oivim kita he mekayvel it. Now we're talking like the following brayta, which says that taki you can be mafresh peah calls man it's wheat, but once you ground it, then not. Miracle in Israel, ma'aser tchilas akri. First you ma'aser tchilas akri. You first ma'aser the storage house. Why do you have to be ma'aser first? Shaloi lahavs the ani. You don't want to be mafs. You don't want to make the ani lose out. Normally, like a shikam peah is part from rice. Shalek of shikam peah from a mice. They give it over here. It's higher because there was miruach. There was the storage house was smooth at that point. It's chiv ma'isa. So therefore, in order not to make the ani lose out, you first give mice and then give peah. Aval idvar mitzvah in half of the chol yom v'amavak sekah. Yes, therefore, have a pasha be nuki Makkos and mitzvah. Now he's hitting them too much. Adri Rav Acha made a neder shleim. They shouldn't teach any more children. And Rabbina was mahader. Took the teacher back. So that is the first. This really ends off the Gemara. We've been married a lot now. Lava nitig laseh, bitla kimim. When you get malchus, the lava nitig laseh, and when not, and then what are the examples where you can get malchus for lava nitig laseh? And the maskana ultimately was the only two times that you get malchus for lava nitig laseh, according to the Yochanan at least, is if when you mevatel laseh. The only situations where you can be mevatel laseh is the case of shiluch hakan, where you track the animal, so you can't, and the case of peah. The case of peah. Because if you eat according to everybody, if you eat the challah, if you eat the bread, you're not going to be able to do peah anymore. At that point, you're going to be over the lav of leisachala, even though there was a nitik laseh of alani lagerta. Now we go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah said that someone who eats nevedas means animal which wasn't shachted or died. If it wasn't shachted properly or died. Treifa is an animal which can't last. It's not going to live. It's unhealthy. It's not going to live more than 18 months, 12 months. Shkotzim or masim, different types of people crawly. So all these different things, you get malchus. The Gemara says, Amr of Yehuda. Yehuda said, and the Emes Sarach Bil. What's the Kiddush? Let's just see the Gemara first, and maybe back a little bit. Amr of Yehuda. Hayman the Achav Yisus the Bekarva. Rashi explains that somebody who eats a beinis is a certain type of toilah, a worm, and the beikar, which can be found in a cabbage. Now, you get Makkos for the number of Makkos for sheretz ha'aretz. I believe we'll soon see that there's two lavin of sheretz ha'aretz. It means to say that besides the lavin you get samazai for sheretz, two lavin which are said is sheretz bechlal, you also get two more for sheretz ha'aretz. Question is, what's the chiddush? I mean, it's a sheretz. What's the difference? So some say that pshat is that there's normally a din that there's sheretz which if it grows in the actual vegetable that hasn't yet been in the ground, so then it's not considered sheretz ha'aretz. So the chiddush is that over here, since the cabbage is connected to the ground, so it's considered sheretz ha'aretz. So the different pshat. Okay, so Akoponim, this is the Gemara. I'm reviewed. I'm and Dovid needs to be carved. Makin le mishum sheretz ha'aretz. The Gemara contains Ahu Dovid needs to be carved. There was a certain person who eat this this worm which was in the cabbage. When Nogde Rabbi Yehuda gave him Makkos. Nogde means give him Makkos. Rashi, they needs to be carved to last, and this is the krub. Okay. Now we continue to talk a little bit about the different lavin that you get for eating different types of shkots. So the Mishnah Bamas didn't say how many Makkos you get. The Mishnah just said, on the Vedas Grave Shkots and Masim, you get Makkos. We're going to say Bamas, you get multiple Makkos for eating different types of shots. Omar Abai says, Achal Putisa, you eat a Putisa, and I can't remember the translation in English. Of Putisa, Rashi says, Bola Sheretz Hamayim. You swallow this Sheretz Hamayim, which is called Putisa. So then, Loike Arba. You get four different. Yeah, I made a mistake earlier when we said the sheretz ha'aretz is actually five we get altogether. There's two lavin in general about shrotzim, and then there's three for sheretz ha'aretz. But here we're talking about putisa. Putisa is a sheretz hamayim, which is four lavin. It's four malch. Loik arba. Rashi will go through them in a minute. The molan and loik chomish. Five. Why five? Two for the regular sheretz, and then there's another three. Mishum sheretz ha'aretz because it's a sheretz ha'aretz. There's two lavin about sheretz hamayim. There's three lavin mishum sheretz ha'aretz. There's two lavin for general shrotzim. So each time you have to add up how much you get to. So if it's a sheretz hamayim, you end up getting four, 2 and 2. If it's a sheretz ha'aretz like an ant, so then it's 2 plus 3. There's 2 for regular. In fact, it's just included in a regular sheretz and the general klal of shrotzim, and then another 3 for sheretz ha'aretz. Sira is a hornet, which is both a sheretz ha'aretz. It goes on the land and it also flies. So then loike sheish mishum sheretz ha'aretz. There's one more lav because of sheretz ha'aretz. Okay, let's see Rashi. So we did loikar bosh nei laving suvim b'sheretz hamayim. There's two lavim which are written b'sheretz hamayim. Ach v'teis kelim ach mishnah one person sefer vayik one bosh nei laving suvim b'sheretz tam. Lois shak snapshi seichem b'chol b'sheretz lois tamu b'hem. Omasha bein sheretz hamayim bein sheretz. Always hay dal yapol. The mola, if you swallow an ant, fall in the mola, chaya. Right, so he's bothered a little bit by why you're getting Malchus for the Mars, a tiny little ants, explaining that because it's a barrier, so everyone holds to get Malchus, even though we had a Makkos in the Mishnah about Chita. But over here, an ant, everybody agrees, even if there's no Kazayas, normally Achila, you only get Malchus for anything to do with eating, but you're only going to get Malchus for the full share of a Kazayah. An ant, you get, because it's a barrier, following the Malachaya, you swallow this whole ant or live ant. Rashi says, "Hoyle very shleimach. He lost a bechoshu v'loik yecham. You get 5. Why 5? Shnei lamnik some b'sharetz tam k'mish brashti. Or shloish lamnik some b'sharetz are there's plain. There's 2 regular lamb, 2 lamb, 2 shots in the plow, and 3 lavin with regard to sheretz ha'aretz. You end up with 5. Sira or hornet, it's a sheretz which flies. Loik yesheish chamish mishum sheretz ha'aretz. The 5 is just the 2 plus the 3, which is sheretz ha'aretz. The akum mishum sheretz ha'aretz. It's in Mishnah Torah. It says in the Devarim, Parashat A. Right? So that's another Avalois distraction. It's now period. Then miss a period. But you can tell me the other lavim. Avalois distraction. Snapshi say, "Be behem of oibegoyim." I caught the participation. Einim. I mean, it lav sheretz. Not too much. There's avagad b'ksiv yashet tirmis adama, which go on the ground. So it does sound like shrotzim. He says lashon brias gedolos. He's referring to animals which are larger. The sheretz, when it says tirmis, the lashon roimis. The sheretz, the lashon of sheretz is that lashon very katan on the muchash and carries be look b'kaishu near skirikash. Different words mean different things, and therefore the pasuk says asher tirmis adama doesn't refer to the shrots because the bigger animals. And when we talk about mamish, the small creepy crawlies are not included in those psukim which says like shaksu or kaisedation, but rather only in psukim which talk about which refer to it as a sheretz. Okay, now we have a different gemara since we talk about like shaksu and right? The lashon of psukim that you're not supposed to make yourself disgusting. So Amr Rav Achoy says, "Hamashes nakav," someone who he needs the bathroom badly and he delays and he doesn't go. Oiv mishum lo yitshak. So over the lav lo yitshak, you're making yourself disgusting. So most Rishonim, whatever, most of the parts know that it's not mamish literally the rice of the lav lo yitshak. It's a smack. It's a drabanan. But that's mechua. They connect this possible lo yitshak. So the same thing with the next case. Amr Rabbi Hayman Shosi Bekarna Umna. Someone who drinks, right, from this keli, which is normally used for letting blood. So it's a disgusting thing to drink from it. It's normally used just for sucking blood from somebody. Don't drink from it. So someone uses it to drink. And again, I think most Rishonim learn it's the Rabbanan. Sometimes learn it's the rice. Most Rishonim learn it's the Rabbanan and it's Nasmachta in the past. The Nafkamina, the Marshal is the double covered abrias or whatever, the different situations where you're not going to be able to be either on the rice. Right, you go in the bathroom, maybe in a place which is a public place, are you embarrassed? You have to do that or not? If it's a deraisa, you would have to. So what if you're embarrassed? If it's a derabban, we have the principle of God will cover the bridge. Anyway, upon him that is a of shaks. Says Rashi, the Karen of the woman, the dam, the Karen b'mitzitza. They suck like a pipe, like a straw. So you can't use that keli for drinking. Okay, now we move on to the same topic really, but different track. Amar Rabba by Rav Huna says, "Risek tisha nemala." You took 9 ants and you crushed them, right? So we said earlier that you get malchus for eating an ant. What meant you get multiple malchus for eating an ant. Why do you get multiple? How many malchus do you get for the ant? 5, yeah. 2 for the regular shirts and 3 for the shirts halar. But you only do it because the nemala is a berry. It's whole. Once you crushed it, so that's. If you crush 9, so if you just crushed the 9, it doesn't say it's killing the more. If you crush the 9 and there's no kazayas in the 9, you're not going to get any malchus whatsoever, even though there's 9. But let's say it's 9 the malam behavi achot kai v'shliman the kazayas, and you have one which is whole, and the one which is whole is mashlim the kazayas. So then you're going to be loika sheish, not 5. In other words, the fact that there's a kazayas, that's why you have 5. You're going to be loika sheish because of nevela, eating a dead, right? Eating a kazayas of nevela. In other words, the kazayas is the kazayas of nevela. You're going to get the 5 for sherets. So risik tishin mal behavi echot chai v'shim tzai is loika sheish. Chamish mishum barrier 5 because of the barrier for the echot chai, which was the 5 shots in. But echot mishum kazayas, and you get another one for kazayas nevela. So any dead animal is yichai. This is machlekes talk with Yichai and the Vela for Tomei, the creature. If you explain like I just explained, which is based on Rashi, so then it must be that this taka is in the Vela also on Tomei the creatures. Let's see Rashi. In the Mala, we did. Sorry, Risek miach v'chis is a bit limitaris biri. Mishum k'zai is in the Vela. Sheboilo who meiz mistaref k'zai is in the Vela. You swallow it dies, and it's mistaref k'zai is in the Vela. It's mistaref to the kazayis nevela. Rav Amar B'Yech nafilu shnayim. It doesn't have to be 9. Even if you have 2 and 1 more, and it adds up to kazayis, it'll also be okay. The Klein are busy with what's the. All matters is this the kazayis. What's that? It's 9 and 1, 2 and 1. Even if it's 1, the loy pligi, they're not really arguing with each other. Depends. They're arguing just with they're talking about different situations where it's big or small. So the obvious difficulty over here is what's the difference? 9, just say it. There's a kazayas, so you're going to be over, you're going to be over however many malchus. 5 for the sheret plus 1 more for the kazayas nevela. So that's okay. That's you have to see that right how they deal with the question. Right in the Gemara to a situation of the dinim in the Mishnah. If you ate tevel. Tavel means any produce which truma wasn't taken from it, right? So or maestras, and the Yechai Malchus eating tavel. If you eat, what's the other examples in the Mishnah? Meiserishin shlein to trumasa. Yeah, also tavel, form of tavel. Eating meiserishin itself, you don't get Malchus because it's not. There's no issa of meiserishin is a moment thing. You have to give the meiserishin to the Levi. There's no issa for Yisroel to eat it. But the Mishnah is talking about meiserishin shaloi nitla trumas. The trumas has trumas mais, which is only multiple Klein. So you're Levi or Yisroel, you're eating Tevel or Meiser Rishon related to Trumas, different types of Tevel basically. You chayiv Malkus. Amar Rav. So Rav here has a chiddush. Achal Tevel shel Meiser Ani loike. You ate Tevel of Meiser Ani, you get Malkus. What's the problem? What's the chiddush? The chiddush is a very big chiddush. What's Tevel of Meiser Ani then? You mafresh everything. You mafresh Truma. You mafresh Meiser Rishon. You took the Meiser, whatever. There's no Meiser Ani is in place of Meiser Sheni. Okay, so you took everything, and now it's just a question of Meiser Ani. Meiser Ani, there's no din that you're not allowed to eat it. It's just a chiyuv to give to the Ani. But if you didn't give it to the Ani, it means that the food is mamish Tevel, and if you eat it, you chayiv Malkus. It's not just a chiyuv, right? So that's Rav's chiddush. The Achal Tevel shel Meiser Ani loik. Command. Who does this go like? This member of Rav. Who does it go like? Ki Hai Tana goes with the following bright. It's Tanya Amr of Yisroel. Yisroel says as follows: Yochaloi Chayvel Al Tevel Shaloi Hurim Menokolik. I made a thing that when you chayev for Malkus for eating Tevel, non-niced produce, when you didn't take Truma at all. Hurim Mimenu Truma Gedoyla Veloy Hurim Mimenu Ma'aserishim. But what happens if you took Truma Gedoyla and the only thing you didn't take from is Ma'aserishim? Or Ma'aserishim Veloy Ma'aserishim. You took Ma'aserishim, you didn't take Ma'aserishim. Even if you took everything besides the Ma'asani Minayin, how do I know? How do we know that you still consider Tevel Yichai Malkus? Because Tamalim, we have a special possible point to this price. It's not everybody agrees, but this Tana whole Tamalim Lo Yisucha Lecha B'Shrach. The pasuk is not allowed to eat it in your. Let's see the pasuk inside. Hey, Lo Yisucha Lecha B'Shrach Ma'aseh D'Gon Ketrish B'Tzrecha, right? So Alanu I believe it says the same word. The word B'Shrecha V'Achlu B'Shrecha V'Saveil. This is talking about Ma'aser Ani. The Satz La Levi La Ger Yasam Manu Va'achu B'Shrecha Saveil. The Levi, then the Ger and the Yasam they take it. So that's talking about Ma'aser Ani. Malalo Ma'aser Ani Avka Ma'aser Ani. Just like over there when it says Va'achu B'Shrecha, usually with the Shrecha is talking about Ma'aser Ani. So too Lo Yisucha Lecha B'Shrecha is referring to the Tevel of Ma'aser Ani. Lo Yisucha Lecha, you're not able to eat the Tevel B'Shrecha, that which is Shaykh B'Shrecha, meaning the Ma'aser Ani, even if it's just Ma'aser Ani, hasn't been taken from. Ram Rachmana Lo Yisucha. So he says Lo Yisucha, if you have a lamb, you're not allowed to eat Tevel, even the Sharecha de Tevel, meaning the Tevel, which everything was taken besides for my son. That is the member of Rav, and Rav was going like the Bryce of Rabbi Yisroel. Says Rashi, and we're going to continue a little bit after this, just to go over the page to finish the piece, the 2 dots. Tevel shall nice sheni shehofer shall call my straight and chutz me. Loike, you got Rav got the nice on because it wasn't chiddush in Rav. Rashi explains even the nice on no chiddush. Shay lozarim nechal b'chomakim can be eaten by zarim. There's no limitation of eating it in Yerushalayim. It can be afila haki tavel. Nevertheless, before you give nice on it's not the din Tevel. Malal on nice on just like over there where it says over Vinyan and the Shana Shlishis over there. So we know it's talking about Ma'aser Ani. Abishrach Amakan, yes, don't remember Ma'aser Ani, it's talking about Ma'aser Ani. Hakam, Lo Yisuch Alechel Tevel, but Oisha Ma'aser B'Seicha Shekasa B'Bishrach. Okay, so now the Gemara continues and says like this. Rabbi Yosef says, the Chura Kitanoi, that this member of Rav is it's totally not Muskam, it's a Machlekes Tanoim. How's a Machlekes Tanoim? For the following Bryce. The following Bryce says like this. It's a Mishnah, it's a Bryce. No, it's a Mishnah. Very dull, Mishnah Gimel of the man. Rabbi Lezer says, Ein Sarich Likris as a shame al Ma'aser Ani shal Demai. Right? So we all know what Demai is. Let's quickly go over what Demai is. Demai is something which was bought from an Amaretz, produce which was bought from an Amaretz. So in Nechsha, they were suspected that they didn't take Truma. Truma they took, not Ma'aser, huh? Yeah. Right. So now the question: what about Ma'aser Ani? So Beleza says, "Ain't so." So if you do have food, so you can actually you can make it ois tevel, make it ois demai, shall we say, by being koyer the shame. You don't even, as long as you have any machshava, part of it is going to be Ma'aser, so it's fine. So what about Ma'aser Ani? He says, Beleza ain't so because the shame on Ma'aser Ani shall demai. You don't need to be koyer the shame for Ma'aser Ani because we'll soon see why. Right? There's no problem Ma'aser Ani by demai. So the Gemara wants to suggest my lab hakim. This is a machlekes. Marsavar vaday toiv. The Chacham say you have to be a shame on the Ma'aser Ani whole. The problem is like on the demai of Ma'aser, which on the demai you have to be say it's Ma'aser Ani, a shame Ma'aser Ani because they hold vaday toiv. The word to be regular Ma'aser Ani or tevel, shall we say, or taka be tevel. And you get Malkus. So Marsavar vaday ain't a toiv. But even in the case where it's vaday, where Ma'aser Ani hasn't taken any toiv, doesn't make it tevel, and therefore we're not worried by the man. So Abai says no, you can't say that, and therefore would be taught, and therefore Rab would only be able to go according to Chachamim, right? And Rabbi Yossi would be like the Chachamim, but that would be a shitta which says that no, that tevel of Ma'aser Ani is not tevel. The Gemara says Abai, no, you can't say such thing. Why? Why talk about a case of Safek? Argue, but if what you're saying is based on a larger point that even the Vadai Tavel of Maisa Ani is not really Tavel. So why talk about Dmai? Talk about Vadai. Elo the Kula Ama Vadai Tavel. For sure, now everybody agrees. Both Rabbi Lezer and the Chacham hold the word to be Daka Maisa Ani Tavel of Maisa Ani, and we knew for sure that Maisa Ani wasn't taken Vadai. It would be Tavel, like Rav said, and Gemalkus and Allah Dinim, just like regular Tavel. For Hakabah, here's a totally different machlokes. Machlokes has just been a get to Amei Aretz. What was Amei Aretz's relationship with taking Maisa Ani? Hakabah committed Gemar Sav Lo Nefesh to Amei Aretz al Maisa Ani. Rabbi Lezer said you don't have to be carried the shame. He held that the Maisa Amei Aretz Taka they were naturally not taking Maisa Rishon, but Lo Nefesh to Amei Aretz al Maisa Ani shall deny why. Given the Mamoinu Afrushi Mafresh, since it's only an issue of Mammon, so they didn't care. So they're mafresh it. You know, there's the reason by Maisa Rishon they were worried because they knew that Maisa Rishon also had Trumas Maisa in it. So they thought to themselves, different shatim, but they thought one way of explaining it. They thought to themselves, I don't want to give Maisa Rishon because if I get because I'm gonna part of it I can't eat. So they were worried about the Maisa. They didn't take Maisa Rishon b'chlal, but by Demai they didn't really care. In other words, they weren't planning on giving it to the ani anyway. So, but they would at least be mafresh it. Given them a moinu afrushi mafresh. Since it's only a momendika issue, so they will mafresh it, and it's not tavel anymore, and they didn't care about giving the right. Rabbanon sabi given the tichle mosalei mafresh. Let's see Rash. Ein I think it's a shame. Damrin on the Yoichin, the last Rashi on Tazayin on the base. Damrin on Yoichin can go the Shalach the Chol Yisroel the Rois Ami Oretz. So you might say to the times of Yoichin can go. He sent the messengers in the Chol Yisroel, and they saw that Ami Oretz Chashudin on the Ma'aser Schutz mit Truma Gedolah. Yeah, they gave Truma Gedolah, but they didn't give any of the other Ma'asers. Amal and Yisroel Banik Shem Shat Truma Misa Kachat Misa. He's saying he was very worried. What do you mean? Like, very nice they strict about Truma, but Tavel is also Misa. Amad v'tiken al likech mamaris yapish kol ha'maisus ma'akon atzma. Is misaken that someone who takes amaretz has to be mafresh the maisus, but he can keep it to himself. Why can he keep it to himself? It's a suffix at the end of the day. So when they get to the issue the raisa, the surim of misa, so savi the raisa l'chumra. But when they get to the moment, so we know the suffix moment. So somebody make roll of a raya, you can keep the money. So misad the dinim moment is of it they keep the caps to themselves, but they remafresh it, so there shouldn't be tavel. But oichal ma'aser rishon shay mutlazam. There's no problem eating the Ma'aser Rishon or Ma'aser Sheni. Oichal b'Yerushalayim. Ma'aser Sheni tak you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. The im shnas Ma'aser Ani you nefek Rabbi Lezer v'cham because in shnas Ma'aser Ani Makkos Rabbi Lezer v'cham. Come Rabbi Lezer is saying the loyalty mi boy first from yourself. There's no need to. Mitzad the mama you can keep it anyway. But even mitzad the tavel you don't have to be mafresh. After you look so the Shem below Ma'aser Ani shpizah yehei b'tzvayni b'domi nami loytzar. That's Rabbi Lezer. Chacham are in the top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. You have to be koyer. The kibbutz shalom, you have to say this is ma'isa. You have to be koyer the shame that this is ma'isa. On it, given shtar of shame yotzak kri mitaris tavel. Or sham ma'isa start lapish akarcha. If you start lapish ma'isa rishon towards ma'isa, and the kind should be misa lazar. Or ma'isa sheni start lapish shayim la'oikle. Rabbanon sav rivade tal. So the Gemara wants to suggest that the pashas machlokes from Rabbi Lezer and Rabbanon is going to get to whether this tavel on something which ma'isa ani wasn't separate. Rabbanon sav rivade tal l'tichas steiki start lapish simidei savi tavel. That's for the suffix also. The Gemara answers that no. If that was the case, then you would talk. Why not argue about Vadai? Rather, everyone holds a Vadai for sure. My son, he wasn't taking with Taka B'Tavel. The question is whether Amei Aretz are Chashud, whether we worry that they didn't or not. So the first man, meaning Rabbi Lezer says, Lo nechshtu Amei Aretz my son. He says Rashi, Ein boy Israchila as el gazlanim, the il gazlanim lechayish. They weren't worried about. There's no Isakil in my son. The only problem is Gazlanim. They don't care about stealing from that name. So therefore, Frushim Mafresh, they've got nothing to lose by being Mafresh. Interesting thing, right? They didn't care about stealing from that name, but they were. But why not make it not Tavel? What do they care? Frushim Mafresh, they would be Mafresh it in order to take away the Tavel. He the Ma'aser Rishon Mafresh Tak. Why didn't do the same thing with Ma'aser Rishon? They thought that if I'm going to be Mafresh Ma'aser Sheni, being a Mafresh Ma'aser Minishul B'Misan in the Klein. They didn't realize that it's all the same thing. It's all tavel, but they thought that if I take my Rishon, so then I have to give some of it to the Kohen because I'm not allowed to eat it. I'm not allowed to eat it. I need to take it to Yerushalayim, so they didn't bother. But by Ma'aser Ani, where there's nothing to do, or they could just separate it and eat it, and there's no Isurim, besides for stealing from the Aniyim, which they weren't concerned with, so the tackle would be mafresh. So that's what Rabbi Lezer held. The Chacham say no. Chacham say, at the end of the day, since it's involved the tirikov, we mafresh it. So they wouldn't be. Okay, stop.